Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner MetaZone, Roby and mscribe, and today we're going to be talking about DMT.
And the NAT Cat's explosion.
Oh, yeah.
The Ordinals takeover, dude. It's been quite an interesting day so far. We woke up to quite the
80% run on Natcats?
Yeah, something like that. At one point, it was like 120%. So if we're looking for a market like reversals after like a 6-month accumulation phase, this is it. This is like akin to, like, remember in 2019, when was it? Whenever like we were recording the podcast and Bitcoin was like accumulating for so long, then all of a sudden it just like woke up and stayed up God candle mode.
It was time, dude.
Was that 2019? No. Was that 2019?
It was. Yeah, it went from 3,000 to
like
7,000
or something.
and then 14, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite the awakening. So
yeah,
feels like this, right? It's been like a long winterish period, not just for the DMT space, but Ordinals, right?
I mean, we spent almost a year at $60,000 Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a long accumulation. That's the longest ever, I think.
Yeah, so accumulation is a good thing, right? It means it presents usually opportunity to, as the name suggests, to accumulate, right? An asset or whatever, while it's basically undervalued in its current market state, right? In anticipation of a leg up. So that's what we're witnessing here with Natcats. It has awakened, dude. And it's interesting because I think a lot of the market doesn't understand why or what's the significance of the Nat Cat. So we're going to try and break it down as much as we can for you guys.
Yeah, so if you go to Magic Eden and you go to CoinGecko, you kind of see the chart here, and you see that little uptick.
Yeah,
that's the signal, dude.
It's birth of life after, again, since it's, you see at the very beginning here. So Natcats was a free mint. Probably about 10 months ago or something, February of earlier this year, right?
Yeah, just a mint was like $1.50, maybe less than that.
Yeah, so, just like any other free and fair mint, people just had to catch wind of its birth, and then you were able to inscribe these mint details onto the Bitcoin blockchain per the
protocol.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, you got Natcats, right? And that did really well initially. It went from basically free to $10,000 a floor, which, I mean, we're talking in the heat of a bear market. It had that kind of,
I remember that.
That kind of energy injection.
Yeah, right? I mean, everybody on Ethereum was talking about it, like notable figures.
Frank the Gods.
Yeah, Thread Guy.
Yeah, it caught their attention. It's like, what the hell is going on in the Bitcoin space, right? Because nobody really knew what's going to be like the blue chip Ordinals, right? I think like Node Monkeys probably just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, puppets were probably being birthed around the same time. So
yeah,
it's quite the competing space for like the meta narrative of the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? And then Natcats just came out of nowhere and just blew it out of the water.
From Bitcoin, dude.
Built by Bitcoin.
That's right.
From Bitcoin, yeah.
All right, so you look at Magic Eden, you can see that number 5 is Natcats, and so it has like the biggest gains for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Desi with a tweet here, are Natcats the punks of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so why do you think people are asking this question, like, intuitively?
Well, because they wanna like own a punk before it explodes.
Yeah, create like the most killer narrative for your bags, right? Essentially, because you refer back to NFTs of last cycle. Yeah, that was the punks and the Bored Apes were like the two like golden gets. If you were like early to the NFT space, if you had any of those, you were tremendously successful. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what's going to be the punks of the Bitcoin ecosystem since it's a brand new, Ordinals is brand new, hasn't really experienced its first bull cycle yet.
Correct.
So the task is, what are they, right? So
yeah, so just to get your wrap your mind around why CryptoPunks and why Bored Apes, here's the chart, and it reached a market cap of.
See if you can like zoom in there, dude.
Hold on, let's see.
And again, I don't think these were totally free, but they were basically free in context to like how valuable they became. But maybe it was a free mint. It probably was a free mint. Let's call it a free mint. If you're like an NFT historian.
125 ETH.
Yeah, that's the all-time high.
Yeah.
So if you do the quick math, and the price of ETH at that time was like 4,500-ish.
Yeah.
And so do the quick math. I think that's somewhere in the realm of $500,000.
Yeah, floor price.
That means any like common CryptoPunk.
Yeah.
No, we're not talking about the rare of rares. Like we're talking any base level, basic bitch CryptoPunk was $500,000, dude.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was only there for like a second. This is like
a whole month.
A period of like the market euphoria was centered around the CryptoPunks, right?
Yeah.
As an asset class. So I think it's a valid exercise to try and, determine what is going to be the Bitcoin ecosystem's parallel asset. Right?
Yeah, so let's establish those parallels. So I'm reading this article here, and it's from Decrypt. It says, composed of 10,000 algorithmically generated pixel images with 87 unique attributes, CryptoPunks inspired the ERC 721 standard and gave birth to the profile picture movement that later spread through Yuga's Bored Apes and countless other spiritual successors.
So that means essentially it was the earliest attempts at creating like a sensible standard for collectability on chain, right?
Yeah.
On Ethereum's landscape, and it inspired a whole ecosystem to come after it. Which, if you're around, we all saw it, right? $60 billion of like value manifestation was the result of like NFT adoption, essentially, right? So, what can you credit like to the Natcats in parallel?
Oh, well, let's take a look. So Natcats is built on digital matter theory, which is a framework that we put together over a year ago. And essentially, with every launch of a token, it was a hybrid token model. So every mint, you're minting like a unique asset. Plus, that unique asset comes with a fungible token associated with it based off of the data on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so we called it a hybrid token model. But this hybrid token model was inspired by Natcats.
Correct, because when DMT was first deployed, it was essentially a fungible token protocol, right?
That's
like
right.
If a NAT was the first DMT deployment, which is a fungible token, which its supply is non-arbitrarily produced based on the bits field value of every block, right? So that had a block out 7 days. All the blocks were minted essentially, and we have our non-arbitrary fungible supply. And every new block introduces
a new
expansion to the supply.
Right.
That's the big breakthrough model, right? But how do you apply the same, I guess, like contextual logic to unique creation? Right? That was the big question mark.
Yeah. So EV, who's been paying attention to the podcast, he was like, you know what? These mints, they're unique. So I'm going to try to tie art and algorithmically generated art, such as Natcats, to each of these mints. And so he leveraged this hybrid token model, and essentially, here's what the Natcats algorithmically generated asset looks like.
Yeah. And again, so part of this script is the interlinking between pattern occurrence in the Bitcoin data to trait generation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like per mint, depending on the information of the block that you claim for this Natcats is like what the output becomes. Right?
Yeah. And so people were minting essentially this JSON. So tap DMT, it has the deployment ID, it has the ticker Natcats, and then the unique aspect of it was the block number.
Yeah. So what do you mean blocks? But there's like 860 or however many blocks there are now. So
870 plus.
So are you implying that that's how many Natcats exist?
Negative.
So
so
this
deployment ID points, this inscription ID points to the deployment of a Natcat, and within that is an element, and that element is essentially a recognized pattern on Bitcoin, and that recognized pattern has a non-arbitrary supply, and so however many times that pattern exists throughout the 870,000 blocks of Bitcoin, that's how many Natcats there are.
Correct.
And so in this case, there are 8,064 occurrences of that pattern.
Which is 3B, literally the string of 3B.
Yeah, within the bits field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's only occurred 4 times in Bitcoin's 15-ish year history. And it's interesting, like the dynamic between like the occurrence. Like there's, a 10-year gap between like 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then there's like a 1-year gap. So that's the whole idea of non-arbitrary creation, right? It's completely dependent on Bitcoin. It injects a little bit of like a randomization element to the existence of these things in contention with the idea of arbitrary creation, where there's just some human input of like ones and zeros typically.
Yeah, 10,000.
10,000. It's like, that's it. That's all that can be manifested because I said so as the creator. A little bit lame from our perspective. Definitely, like, typically new market cycles breed new innovations, new interpretations of how to do things.
Yeah.
And essentially, Natcats like set that will in motion with the UNAT standard, which is unique non-arbitrary tokens.
Yeah. And so that means that if blocks continue producing on Bitcoin, which we can all assume they will, and this pattern occurs sometime in the future, that means Natcats will be produced again sometime in the future.
Yeah, specifically 2016 of them.
Correct.
Because that's how many blocks are accounted for during a difficulty period, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you got to learn a little bit about your Bitcoin lore. That's kind of the coolness about DMT.
Which
you really have to understand Bitcoin.
It's kind of important for everyone to understand how Bitcoin works.
Yeah.
Just so that you know how it works. Like,
it's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
To not just be like, yeah, I own some Bitcoin.
Yeah, without knowing like why it's just for what. And
TikTok told me to.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's perfectly fine too, you know, if you don't want to like actually understand like where the value's coming from.
Yeah, understanding means you'll have conviction in what you're doing.
Yeah, you won't freak the fuck out whenever like Bitcoin corrects.
Yeah, which it will. It will correct 30%. Go to 100K and then 70K, and then people are like losing their minds.
You're going to sell at 70K.
Yeah.
And it's going to blow past all the way up to like 150, 200 range.
That's right.
Shit, I should have had conviction.
That's right.
I should have known what I was buying.
And then once it reaches 200, that's when you read the Bitcoin white paper. It's like, oh.
Yeah, so I guess we're doing some good after all, hopefully. It's like we're trying to get people interested in Bitcoin from like a new perspective, right? There's the financial aspects of Bitcoin. Now there's this digital manifestation aspect, which
that's right.
We feel adds a new like layer of interestingness, an interesting vertical to experiment, right?
Yeah, there's more density in each of these assets, dude.
Totally.
All right, so Natcats also has its own Gitbook, and so if you want to read a little bit more as to like how this was constructed, Evie put this together. And but Natcats isn't the only one.
Yeah, so per that Decrypt article, right? It's like, okay, CryptoPunks inspired a whole standard. So if that is to have any value, you would expect like a Cambrian explosion, if you will, of like new creation.
Yeah.
Leveraging that standard, right? So is that happening in the UNAT space?
Well, absolutely. So pretty soon after that, after Natcats, there was a bunch of like art that was free and fair. And then the Royals came into the picture, and they were like, you know what? I've been in the space for a while, said King. And King was like, I wanna sell my art. I think it's worth it. I was like, cool. So let's set it up. And so here's Natcats. The Royals. And it's also doing pretty well today. And let's see.
Oh, shit. This is in Chinese. So this is like some components of it.
Yeah, the Royals has their own Gitbook, so definitely read that. But I wanted to get to this point. So we were collaborating with King, which created the Royals, and she was like, "Okay, let's set this up, and I want to sell my art." And then we invented kind of like a new method to mint, right? Yeah. So all the squares, all the blocks that represent each of the Royals are here. People are jumping in, and they're actually minting these in real time against each other.
Yeah. So the backbone infrastructure to essentially index and validate all this stuff is TAP protocol, right? And the track network. So part of the innovation that the Royals brought to the table is privilege authority. So that's how you're able to essentially create these like parameters around a mint. It's not now, like you're saying, you can facilitate a real creator economy with priv-auth.
That's right. That's right.
Kind of like, so you can associate the Royals as like the Bored Apes in a sense of like this ecosystem, right? Because this was a paid mint, and it's like also inspired by CryptoPunks, and it's like the first real demonstration of not just the standard, but the utilization of the progression of the standard, and like an actual like market participant of like the NFT art creator economy, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Which is good. That's all to us. It was worth the massive amount of stress that it put on our team.
Definitely.
In the community. Like it wasn't just us stressing out. All of the people who helped us test all this stuff, it was a very stressful process.
It was.
But these are like foundational pillars for the future of DMT.
And you know what's cool is that all this was recorded on YouTube.
That's true.
So if you really wanted to go back and relive this moment, it's actually here.
Yeah, we literally had a $100,000 fumble during like this whole like, what do you call these? This saga?
Yeah.
Like the blockpad saga. It's like trying to get this thing up and running. Man, it was crazy.
Right.
Right. It feels like forever ago, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, and so Royals isn't the only one. So there's other assets out here. We got Nat Frogs also doing its damage to the market here.
Yeah, so a lot of different like PFP creations. Nat Frogs are cool. So
Yeah.
what's the big deal about seeing the ecosystem expand with new artists? I mean, again, it's just proving the viability of this whole new method, right? It's like we can create effectively everything we've already been able to create, but with this new injection of non-arbitrary like data affiliation, right? Where things aren't just like spun out of thin air.
Yeah.
It's all dependent and rooted to the data layer. This what we like to call the substrate layer of Bitcoin.
That's right.
It's a new tool for creators, right?
Yeah.
So Nat Frogs, DMT Chaos.
Yeah, look at this art here.
Big fans of this.
Let me zoom in on some of this art.
Yeah. If you know anything about Enoch, he is the Giga Chad when it comes to like artistry and like understanding the roots and fundamentals of everything happening in the Bitcoin space from a technical perspective, right? So this is severely undervalued.
Yeah, he's definitely the hero we need, dude.
I know he's out there battling with like crazies out there who like don't understand essentially anything.
Yeah.
Like trying to like tumble all this for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
It's internal conundrums.
Yeah,
like
they just don't get it. That's ultimately what's happening. And then finally, DMT Vessels, another blockout.
Yeah. MDV.
And this is unique because this is a 3D asset.
Yeah, this demonstrated like the scope and scale of like creation, right? You can go in there and like experience literally the manifestation of the substrate layer in a 3D experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so on Magic Eden, they don't actually show you the 3D asset, but it's as a GIF representing the 3D asset. And on mscribe, where you see this, you actually see the 3D asset.
So speaking of mscribe, so there is a much larger ecosystem than just these like 3 or 4 that we mentioned. But obviously it would take all damn day to go through every single one of them. But again, all this is on our DMT playlist. Like we literally, as these projects were deploying, we covered pretty much every single one of them. So if you want to go back and analyze the history of the ecosystem's proliferation, definitely do that. I'd say there's over like 100 UNATs for sure. Like from a collections perspective.
Yeah, so that's not all. You just don't mint these and you hold them. There's a mechanism where the community can actually contribute to a collection in the form of a block drop. So instead of an airdrop, where an airdrop you just like find a bunch of addresses and you get some tokens and you just kind of give it to everybody. On Bitcoin, that's very expensive to do, by the way. But a block drop is essentially you are sending an asset to the principal asset. And so if you hold the asset, then you can produce its children asset, which is the block drop itself.
Highly technical.
Yeah.
But essentially all it means is like anybody can deploy like a new collection that the original collection has exclusive rights to claim.
Yeah, which is important because this is aligned to Bitcoin in many ways. So like we were talking about how NAT Cats can be produced into the future, let's say 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And typically if you're in an airdrop, you know, the airdrop's not going to be perpetuated 100 years in the future, right? That's not how things work.
Correct.
But a block drop will, right? So someone minting a NAT Cat 100 years in the future, they will get all of these block drops. So the natures, the NAT Cat avatar.
That's a 3D avatar. That's literally like a replica of your PFP.
Yeah, you get an exact 3D replica.
It has all the same traits and everything. Yeah. And it's already usable. Like
we've been using it for months now.
Yeah, so that again, and the BOAs, this is deployed by EV himself.
Yeah, BOA's the first block drop actually ever.
So if you're talking about new speculative narratives, not only are NAT Cats like the inspiration for UNATs, you know, also the inspiration for like creating essentially this like infinite like value accrual system for like all of the DNT ecosystem where anybody can continue to add new verticals of value to these collections. Like for Outer Studios is a perfect example. Is like, you know, I love NAT Cats. It's great. It's a pioneer contribution to the ordinal space.
Yeah.
But you know what it's missing? It's like some integration into the metaverse, like which Bitmap is another core critical like pioneer frontier in this ordinals experiment. So we should probably build something that kind of like links the two. Right?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It is brilliant.
And it came from the community. Yeah. It was this NAT Cat avatar didn't come from EV. This is like somebody contributed this asset.
Yeah, so I own a Nat Cat. If nobody has claimed this avatar yet, I can go and mint this thing and suit up essentially when I'm in the Matrix or
so
wherever.
Here's an important thing. If you're looking to dip your toes into the DMT ecosystem and you find this Nat Cat, let's say on Magic Eden, it's like, how do I know if these block drops have been inscribed or not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, take the inscription ID of the Nat Cat and go to mscribe and then search that inscription ID on mscribe, and you'll arrive at a page that looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then so look for these different block drops, right? And if you go to the right, there's a status, like this one's unclaimed and this one's claimed. So I claimed my BOA here.
Yeah.
And so before you make a purchase and you're trying to make a decision here, look these assets up, because that is going to influence what you decide to do.
100%. Yeah, and we're still developing like UI UX improvements. This one right here, a demonstration of that, to mscribe itself to, I guess, better display all this stuff. It's definitely not intuitive. If you're like a newly onboarded to the DMT ecosystem, there is a learning curve to understand exactly what's happening. But as we know through crypto experience, those are typically like the most lucrative of opportunities whenever there's like a learning curve process to like really immerse yourself into an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, then it's like you're positioned for dominance, essentially.
Yeah, and if you spend any time in the Bitcoin ecosystem, this might look familiar, right? This kind of looks like mempool.
Yeah.
Or mempool.space specifically.
Essentially like a little block explorer, right?
Yeah.
So like typically you're looking to see like where's the flow of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
That's what the miners are facilitating, right?
That's right. And so here we're showing all the miners that are mining each of the blocks, and look at that. 200 nats are being produced every single block. And within this block, there are 5 block drops. And then if you click on this, it'll actually tell you which of the assets are being produced here. So the elements, which is the patterns that have been discovered in kind of like an open source way or open way for people to contribute to discovering elements.
Yeah.
And then you click on the deployment. So for example, this DMT element has 48 deployments associated with it. You click on that, and then you see all of the assets that have been deployed on that particular element in this particular block.
Mm. Yeah, so the idea, and if you can extrapolate into the future, most of these are fungible tokens, right? Like NAT and other deployments, like targeting the pattern occurrence of the bits field, right? But in the future, when there's more UNATs being deployed and being referenced, maybe even like large scale UNAT mints, like a block drop to all the bitmaps or something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to see in every single block, like the real visual representation of digital matter creation, right? That's the newness. That's what's never existed in crypto's landscape before. You peer into a block and you see a whole new asset class manifesting before your very eyes. And it's all dependent on Bitcoin and the data substrate layer, right?
Yeah. So you can imagine at some point in the future where a NAT Cat shows up, you'll be able to see the NAT Cats here as if like Bitcoin just produced these NAT Cats, and they will be producing them at 2016 blocks, and
way after EV's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's still
Bitcoin's making this stuff. That's why made by Bitcoin.
Built by Bitcoin,
Built by Bitcoin, made by Bitcoin, whatever. It's a real thing. It's a real movement happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And yeah, Nat Cat's kind of like taking off before like all the other ordinals.
Makes sense.
It makes sense, and maybe it's a signal. It's like maybe you guys who are fading this stuff should do a little bit more research, dude. Friction isn't a bad thing, you know. Learning curves aren't a bad thing.
Objectively speaking, this is the most interesting protocol on Bitcoin.
I would have to agree, because every other attempt of a meta protocol standard on Bitcoin is just a rehash of everything that's already exists.
More fungible tokens. Give me a supply number. People mint. Like, there's nothing really new.
It's like JPEGs, but on Bitcoin. It's like cool, but like, how about let's do it?
Let's do something different that we couldn't do on other chains, and that's what DMT is.
Agreed. Yeah. So there's a community building here in alignment. It's like, this is the Bitcoin way. This is going to be the future's Bitcoin's major export of value, right? Is digital matter creation. And it's only going to enhance the value of Bitcoin in the long term. Right?
Yeah. So final plug, we just interviewed Jake from Emblem Vault. That video will be out sometime this week, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. It was a very interesting conversation. So if you're into NFTs, definitely watch that podcast.
Yep. And again, congrats to to the non-faders out there, dude.
Yeah.
It's been quite the huddle.
Yeah.
An accumulation phase, but yeah, it's going to be 2025 is going to be quite the DMT journey.
Yeah.
And we're here for it, dude. And yeah, if you're still fading, Nat gonna make it, dude. NatGMI.com.
Yeah, you're natgmi.com, dude.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us. I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section below. We'll catch you in the next podcast or video, I should say.
Peace.